Well, good morning. And this morning we are here to record a previous conversation that we've facilitated two times regarding our community facilities planning. So, really happy that you're able to spend some time to join us virtually to engage in this continuing conversation as we work on facilities planning for the school district. This work is being led by Dr. Amidzik, and I am Jonathan Mitchell, the Director of Business Services. I'm going to be joining for part of the virtual conversation here today. Steve Coombs, our Director of Buildings and Grounds, has been part of the work in preparation of this information that we have here today. And then, as part of our work, we're going to talk about a citizen facilities committee that we are working with that is helping us with the structure of how we do some of the planning work. And so I am joined by Mr. Mike Hacker, who is that committee facilitator from Cadence Consulting. So Mike, feel free to introduce yourself here.
Sounds great. Well, thank you. As a consultant to the district, I'm really, as Jonathan noted, fortunate to plug in with a group of active citizens to take a close look at the existing buildings and some of the work that's been done recently, and is preparing a tool that'll allow Jonathan and Steve and the leadership team the ability to continue to plan strategically into the future. So I'm looking forward to talking to you a little bit more about that during the presentation today. I've also had an opportunity to go through all the buildings and very familiar with the district. And so I'm really excited to be here today.
Great, thanks. So then this work is being driven by our district strategic plan. And so we have our vision of cultivating excellence in every student. And as part of that, our work in managing resources responsibly, we want to make sure that we continue to be a district of choice for families in our school district. And so the way you feel about the facilities within the school district, the community that your students participate in, or the community at large. Maybe you live in the community or you had students that were here and have graduated. That's a reflection on the quality of our school system and our investment in the community. So we want to make sure that we're being really targeted in how we spend those dollars. So it's really important that this is interactive, even though you're engaging with this in the virtual format. So we actually will have a survey document. And to give you a picture of what that document will look like, we'll have a link to this next to the presentation link. And as well as if you go to the slides, you'll be able to navigate to this document. But this survey is really helpful for you to jot down some notes as we go along, and you'll be able to submit those so that we are ensuring that we're getting feedback from a wide breadth of the community. So we appreciate your time, and we will point out a couple of spots within the presentation that would be good for you to maybe pause and then take a few minutes to jot down some notes. Then we'll move to our district facilities overview. So as Mr. Hacker talked about, he's seen these buildings, has had interaction with the district and some of the planning already. But for planning purposes, we're thinking about our 5 school district campuses, our 3 elementary schools, Canterbury, College Park, and Highland View, our Greendale Middle School, and Greendale High School. And we've added some information regarding student enrollment in the 21-22 school year. So those are the numbers that you're seeing on the right. So Canterbury at about 366 students, College Park 266, Highland View, there's 370 students for the K-5 program. And you'll see separated a number of students, 102, which is our K-4 Time for Learning charter school. The middle school, just over 600 at 614, and then our high school at 953. So that's our district level enrollment. And you'll see a note regarding class sizes. So those class size targets are reviewed and discussed at the school board level, and those help us to identify a staffing model within the class projections that we have at each of those campuses. So it's an important tool that we'll talk about. Then here on the far right, you'll see some of those 3-year enrollment trends. The district is lucky to be in a position where we have seen increasing enrollment over the last 10 years. And so that helps us for planning, and that we have a growing number of students and growing number of related revenue from those students. But from a school capacity standpoint, we also need to keep that in mind within those class size targets and within spaces that we need for our buildings. So that'll be linked to the conversation we have about the 2018 referendum. Then when we look at the overall size of those campuses, looking at the building area and the site area. So the high school campus being the biggest and having the most students. So we have 317,000 square feet and about 31 acres. The Greendale Middle School, 110,000 square feet. And then Canterbury, 51,000 square feet. Canterbury and the middle school essentially share one large campus that is 22.75 acres. College Park, 48,534 square feet, so just slightly the smallest of our elementary buildings, and that is on 8.95 acres. Highland View Elementary, 71,000 square feet on 12.75 acres. And then we will talk about two other campuses, sites that we have that are non instructional but are used for community purposes, and that's at JC Park and the 84th and Grange sites. And those are at 3.75 acres, and then 84th and Grange, 12.5 acres. So we
Go ahead, Jonathan.
so we wanted to spend a minute to speak to the 2019 and 2020 referendum. So there was an investment of $33.8 million in our school campuses through that referendum. And on the right side, we tried to do, you may need to zoom in a little bit on your slides or come a little closer to read that one, but we thought that was important to come back to some of those key guiding documents that were provided at the time that the referendum was being discussed, of those improvement categories that were going to be completed. So at that time, there were improvements around our increase to school safety and security, improving our learning environments, creating flexible and adaptable workspaces, and improving building efficiency and sustainability. And so these check marks relate to the areas that we were able to address through the referendum. And we were able to meet all of those needs with the exception of the College Park site level work. And so one item that's come up as we've had these conversations are a couple questions around changes to the design at College Park. And that was specifically related to the fact that we had a flood plain map change after the referendum was approved by the community. So the district was able to modify the plans for the College Park campus and continue with the instructional additions that were needed, but it looked different in terms of the site work that was completed. And Mr. Hacker, you may want to add some items to this.
Yeah, so this is really exciting because I know, when all this work was going on, the district engaged the community. There was a series of open houses and pre-referendum stakeholder discussions, and a lot of great energy that resulted in these really successful projects. And I know with the timing of COVID, unfortunately, the community hasn't had a huge opportunity to get into all these buildings yet, and we're hoping we can continue to find those chances. So during the presentation today, you're going to see some updated photos and some imagery to show some of those spaces. And I think what Jonathan and I will do as we go through those images is also tie back to some of these original goals about safety and security and infrastructure, academic space, making sure that we're providing enhanced learning environments, as well as a lot of community accessible environments, and we'll be sure to point those out as we go through the images here in a minute. So what we thought we would do is kind of walk you through a series of images, just more to be sure that everyone has had an opportunity to be fully familiar with each of the buildings and the two additional sites that Jonathan had noted. So we thought we'd start here at the high school. The high school, just a little bit of data, all ties back to a few things Jonathan just kind of introed, is a 9 through 12th grade, so freshman through senior year. We're at 957 students, 317,000 square feet, and that is including all of the new and renovated square footage. So this is an all-in current gross building square footage, and just under 31 total acres. And those 31 total acres are certainly the building and the adjacent parking, but also the athletic fields and some of the green space that wrap around the building. So we have a couple different images, and Jonathan, I'll start these, and then feel free to jump in as we're going through here. And so this first image is of the new construction. So this is part of the project that was tied directly to the referendum. And in this space, you see band environment. So this is a part of a significant focus at the high school around additions and renovations to support the music department as a whole, and this space specifically to support the band. And in this image, you're seeing, a space with enough volume for a large quantity of band members to be in playing and practicing, the ability to bring some natural light in, some acoustical tuning of that space. You see acoustical ceiling panels, as well as some soft acoustical panels around the upper perimeter of the room as well. In the library environment, a great investment in really rethinking how the high school is utilizing the library space. So it used to be an area that was housing a collection that was not circulating all that much within, students would come in to access those resources, but not necessarily check them out regularly. A big opportunity to really rethink how students are studying, how they're interacting, how they're collaborating. And you're going to see two images here. This first one shows a series of study spaces, so kind of flexible seating in the center environment. And then around the perimeter, you're seeing study rooms. And those study rooms vary in size. Some of them are supporting groups, and some are focused on more one or two individuals. And many of them have technology in them as well. And from the same space, but looking back out towards the library, the exciting thing about this area is that it does open up onto what is the library proper. So a full renovation of the existing library included these movable glass walls that allowed us to separate the two spaces. So we can open the walls and they can flow, and students can access the entire area. We can close those walls and then treat them as two separate spaces. And a lot of opportunity here to do bring in guest speakers for a medium-sized group, maybe 2 or 3 classes. Testing can function in this space at a high level. The school board utilizes the opposite side of this wall for their school board meetings. And so a lot of very functional use to this library environment. And then lastly, on the east side of the building, you may be familiar with the addition that put a new entrance onto the athletic venue. And so this is all tied to what was kind of a circuitous movement to get into an athletic event or practices, where folks had to enter in up high near the cafeteria and make their way into the building, down some stairs, maybe find an elevator. Difficult to provide security controls in that setting. And so what this allowed was a dedicated entrance to the athletic end of the building, which allowed for far more control of the rest of the school. It also provided on what is a very visible face of the building, especially from Southway, and as you're back maybe towards the football field looking back to the high school, a lot of large gym and pool volumes, big boxes without a lot of presence. And so this allowed for a nice clean entrance, signed, lit at night, a safe plaza that's lit for drop off and pickup for athletes, and I think really a successful component in this project. So jumping to the middle school. So the middle school is 6th through 8th grade, 620 students, just under 110,000 square feet, and on that shared Canterbury site of 22.75 total acres. So this project was all renovation and was investment, as you see here, in the band and music area. So you're seeing new finishes, again, some new acoustical panels. There was some renovation associated with some storage and practice rooms as a part of this. This image here looks at a kind of a hands-on learning space that is tied to the library, which you'll see in a second. This was a computer lab, or what was a more traditional computer hands-on working environment until the opportunity came in here to more enclose that. So it had kind of an open half-height wall. So now it is lined with glass walls. So we're still allowing the natural light in and can supervise the space well, but can allow for activities that are a little bit more mobile, a little bit potentially a little bit louder just in their academic use, and still separate that from the library. You're seeing some power drops from the ceiling, some movable furniture and resilient flooring, which really allow for lots of different hands-on activities to go on within this space. And then a photo of the renovated library. And this will be a common theme as we look at all the library images here this morning. You're seeing the collections or the bookshelves pushed to the perimeter of the room. Okay, so instead of having many bookshelves that were kind of filling the floor space, the intent was to kind of surround the perimeter of the space with those bookshelves, which really allows for a lot more flexibility through the center of that room. And so here you're seeing a lot of flexible furniture. Much of this are on wheels, so they can be moved around very easily. And it really allows for the space to be adapted for lots of different uses over the course of the day, or even by community use in the evenings. And then a renovation of the gym. And you'll see a few more gym photos, I think. And one of the core goals was to create some consistency in all of these spaces. So here at the middle school, it was a refinishing of the gym floor, new bleachers. There was painting around the perimeter, some new pads and acoustical panels. And from a design standpoint, all of the gyms in the district now have a very similar feel to them. We know that the community uses the gym space quite a bit for youth sports and adult rec. And so one of the goals has been to create some consistency in all those spaces. And I think you'll see that in these images. At Canterbury, so now we'll transition to the 3 elementary schools. Canterbury is kindergarten through 5th grade, 371 students. We have one added stat here that we didn't on the last 2. So at the elementary schools, one of the other ways that we track the size of the school or the size of the student body is tied to that chart Jonathan showed earlier about student-teacher ratios and trying to understand how many classes we have or how many classrooms at a given grade. And so at this total, as of this year, we have 18 sections. So there are 18 classrooms or 3 sections per grade. Okay, so we have 3 teachers or 3 classes per grade. The building's 51,000 gross square feet, and on that shared 22.75 acres with the middle school, which also includes the district forest. So this image, one of the core goals at each of the elementary schools was to separate the gym and cafeteria. Previously at each of the elementaries, the gym spaces doubled as cafeteria environments. And sometimes that there is efficiency in square footage. That's why you would have done that initially, but provide some challenges from a programming standpoint, some difficulty in scheduling, a lot of prep and cleanup associated with the lunch hour. But as part of that, key goal here is to allow the gym to fully function for our PE and athletic purposes and allow this cafeteria space to support both lunch service for the students, but also designed in a way that we can separate it from the rest of the building and allow night and weekend activities in this space without allowing full access to the building. So, Jonathan, you have to correct me, but I believe that our before and after school programs utilize these spaces as well.
Yes. And I think just in terms of the feel, one of the distinctions you notice right away as a student is the volume of natural light that you're getting. So remembering that we had shared gymnasium, cafeteria spaces under the old design, which created a lot of logistical issues with providing the curriculum when that overlapped closely with those lunch periods. But here you get that visual of that natural light. And so for those times where students are having conversations and gathering, taking a break from the day, they're just beautiful spaces for the students to engage in. And so I think we have some short videos that go with some of our elementary spaces. So I think we'll go through a couple of those as we finish the elementaries.
Excellent. So in this image, we're seeing the library environment. So this is the library at Canterbury. The referendum investment here was around new finishes in this space, so new flooring, some new paint, new bookshelves, and chairs and seating, but also a small addition. So on the far end of this photo, towards the back, you're seeing kind of that glass wall that looks out into the district forest there. It's a beautiful setting. It's a wonderful backdrop to this library. Previously, there was an overhang there. We simply slid that wall out to the edge of that overhang, recaptured that overhang space as building square footage. And in that space, we are now able to do some more soft seating for the students, some story time space, and we're able to replace a lift with an elevator, which from an accessibility standpoint was a really important investment here at this building.
So to get a visual of that in action as well, I think we'll take a look at a portion of this video clip.
So again, I think what we noted earlier, seeing a lot of the casework wrapped around the perimeter here. Any of the bookshelves you do see at a low height in the center are on wheels or on casters, so those can move around like the furniture does. Really trying to improve sight lines and creating a lot of flexibility in these library spaces.
Ooh, there we go.
As we noted early on, in one of the core goals in these projects were to find opportunities to create more collaborative, innovative learning environments, and this is one of those. This is at the fifth grade pod. So the a portion of the new construction and renovation did create new fifth grade classrooms, and outside of those fifth grade classrooms, a collaborative learning environment. And so that's what you're seeing here. Those classrooms all open up onto this space, and it's a space that can then be housed with alternative furniture types, different types of collaborative spaces. You see some of the collection from the library spill out and be dedicated here to student access now within this space. And then both specialty teachers, maybe intervention faculty can come on and work with students. And you're seeing a lot of extensions of the great things happening in the classroom spill out into these spaces as well.
So again, just short video of that collaboration space and process. I think we've got a group of students that are split up, and you can see here finding that area that's going to be most conducive to learning for you. So am I working alone? Am I working with a partner? Am I working with a teacher? And here we have that flexibility of different heights and areas depending on what would make you most comfortable as the learner to engage in that collaboration work.
So stepping over to College Park. So College Park is kindergarten through fifth grade, 266 students. Here we have 13 sections, or somewhere between 2 and 3 grades, 2 and 3 classrooms per grade. A building of what is now 48,500 square feet on just under 9 total acres. Um, so a couple key images here. So this one here looks at one of the new kindergarten classrooms that was added on to the building, and with a bit of COVID protocol in our spacing, just based on the timing of our photography. But what you are seeing is brand new square footage, brand new building, a kind of a investment in new furniture that is very flexible. These can work as individual desks, as you're seeing, or be grouped together into small groups as well. You're seeing some new instructional furniture as well. So in the distance there, you can see a teacher working with a student in some hands-on ways. And then at all of the kindergarten classrooms here, we also have restroom facilities. So that's that room you see in the back left of this image. You see a small restroom there that was added in, as well as some hand washing stations immediately outside of that. One of the big focuses, again, at each of the elementary schools was to create dedicated cafeteria environments. But outside of that, each of the schools also wanted to ensure that we were able to create uh, secure entry sequences at each of the buildings. And those that were familiar with this building, that was more of a challenge in the previous layout. And so, as part of this project, a new office, or I should say, a renovated space turned into office, was relocated in the building to create a new building entrance. And the area that you see here in this image is now the cafeteria, was the main office previously. And so, wide open, renovated space, really trying best to access as much natural light into this environment as possible. A renovation of the existing library. So again, try to push bookshelves to the perimeter, a lot of flexible seating. The bookshelves you do see in the center are creating some smaller, quiet reading spaces, as well as are on casters so they can move around as well. And then the last elementary school is Highland View. So, and this is the one anomaly Jonathan noted earlier. So Highland View is K4 plus kindergarten through fifth grade. So there are 366 students in our kindergarten through fifth grade, and we have 102 in our 4K. We have 3 sections per grade, K through 5, as well as 5 sections of 4K. The building's 71,000 gross square feet and is on just under 13 acres of land. So here you're seeing a renovated classroom space, similar to the goal at Canterbury and in alignment with much of what we see educationally at College Park. This space does open up out onto a collaborative learning environment. We're also seeing here in the distance on the right side some connections between classrooms. So we found some opportunities for teachers to consider some team teaching and some blending of their curriculum, and the door and the glass that you see there in the wall allows for students to move back and forth between the two classrooms very easily.
So here I think then we get to some of the new collaboration space at Highland. We've got a staff member working with a small group of students, and we see obviously the different height seating areas, and you've got some of that soft seating versus the hard seating, working at taller tables, creating that variety. And then this is the opposite collaboration room in that third and fourth grade wing, and we're going to see more of that same.
So in the new construction classrooms, so this is just inside the space you just saw in the video. You can kind of see the lockers through the door there in the distance. Um, provided opportunities to various levels of flexibility. So in this case, there's actually a movable wall between two separate classrooms. So you can see right now that wall is open, so the two classrooms are spilling together. That wall can very easily be closed, and we have two separate dedicated learning environments. And so the teachers have the ability to adjust that to align with their curriculum delivery at that time. And then in the cafeteria, so a cafeteria again, an ability to, in that new construction and renovation, create a secure entry sequence, create a cafeteria environment that is separate from the gymnasium and can be used before and after school. Jonathan, maybe this is a good spot for you just to quickly note the voting as an example.
Yes, so the community in Greendale has modified polling locations in this last year. So everyone who is east of Loomis now votes at the Highland View campus. We used to have some additional voting locations. It is now west of Loomis is the high school, and east of Loomis is Highland View. So this is a very good setup in the new cafeteria space, because this area can be utilized on those voting days to be secured. We have our own restroom facilities that are built into the space, so the entire instructional wing can be locked off from that voting, and we can continue with that. Um,
Yep, and similar to what we talked about earlier, before and after school programs can use these spaces. You're seeing some storage units in the distance there. Those storage units are lockable and can be used by those groups as well. So here you're seeing the students come in to lunch, obviously on a nice winter day in Greendale as they have their snow gear on. And one of the really beautiful parts of this space is all the natural light that comes in. And Jonathan noted that earlier, but a very welcoming space, a lot of visibility out, and I think kind of makes for a high quality environment. And then for our youngest learners, again, you're seeing space so that we can create learning opportunities to align with their age level. And here you're seeing students down at the floor level working with hands-on equipment, bookshelves low to the ground, and these renovations really allowed for at that level of detail education to be delivered at a high level.
So we created some additional capacity with the new rooms here. And so as Mike's saying, there's some additional capacity to host those programs at Highland View, where in the past we were utilizing a recreational area in the lower level at the middle school. And so this ties a little bit better because we have 4K programming and early childhood. And so you have students foundationally that are coming up to that level, and so getting them a little bit closer to where that next step in their programming is going to be. We mentioned as well the two other campuses sites that the district has, the JC Park location, which is at Southway and Broad Street. And then at 84th and Grange, we have soccer field, baseball field, community playground, lots of great natural space there. But that is a remote area. It is not connected to any of the campuses, but that is owned and maintained by the school district. So this would be a great opportunity if you haven't had a chance to jot down notes on that survey document earlier. Here's a couple of reflection questions. So maybe you want to pause the video right here and be able to jot down some notes based on the discussion that we just had the last 10 or 15 minutes or so. All right. So then we want to pivot in the conversation and talk about our work with a citizen facilities committee. So our work is engaging that team to evaluate a long range facility plan that supports our learning opportunities. And it's aligned with our flexible educational spaces and access, including our indoor and outdoor spaces. And so our evidence of that work will be updated long range facility plan process. And we'll talk about the timeline on that work. And I'll actually turn it over to Mr. Hacker to talk about that.
Yeah, so this group has been meeting regularly since January. So you're seeing on the timeline here, basically meeting monthly, and as a group, really are focusing, as Jonathan talked about, on that core charge. And we've evolved that dialogue as we've kind of met from meeting to meeting. Each of the meetings have met at a different site, so the committee has had an opportunity to also tour the buildings and become a bit more familiar with the existing facilities as they sit today. And that's all leading up to a presentation to the board in June. And so, what will be brought forth is a summary of this great discussion, all this good analysis, and then we'll transition to the district admin team talking about how we're looking to integrate this feedback as they move forward.
Some of the items that we're referencing in that work. So we're taking a look at those maintenance schedules. So the more proactive that we can be in maintaining our sites, the further out we can stretch the replacement cycle from a capital planning purpose. So we're thinking about items like our heating, ventilation, and cooling plan. So we have regular maintenance, we have a contract and a vendor who's documenting the regular maintenance on our components. And our goal is to extend the life as far as possible. Another example would be roofing. So we have a roofing consultant who evaluates each spring current condition, talks about any issues we've had over the winter with any types of leaking, does a plan of preventative maintenance, and then assists the district with any bid process for roofing replacement projects. And the goal is to be cost efficient, but also do the work at a very high level so that we can maximize that useful life. We're always trying to make the most of those limited dollars that we have available. So as we get into the facility plan work, we're working to identify a list of projects here and then talk about the criteria and evaluation of how you prioritize those. And so we are thinking about our safety levels, our ability to increase capacity for our facilities. We're thinking about the alignment to our district strategic plan, and then also the emerging facility needs within the district. There's certain items that we need to keep up just to provide the right environment for our instructional programming. So that work of the team is to think about how to categorize each of those project areas and come up with a model that myself and Mr. Coombs can utilize with our leadership team to prioritize the work going forward. And that should allow for new information to be funneled into the system. So I highlighted the fact that we want to stretch our dollars as much as possible. So from a funding standpoint, we have one dedicated pot of money that's from local dollars each year. That is our capital projects budget. So we use a Fund 41, which is a Department of Public Instruction term for just where the labeling of that fund, but we're using it for capital projects and the district puts in $200,000 annually. So a recent example of how those dollars were used was stadium turf replacement, which was a little over $450,000. And if 200,000 is being put in annually, you can see that for that project, there were multiple years of savings that went in before that project could be completed. So that is a source of funds, but we realize that for projects even like that at the stadium, it is not easy to do with limited resources each year. So we want to be ready when there are other buckets of money, other resources that come available. So you highlight a couple of other areas. We had the state Department of Justice safety grant that provided $282,000 to the district. And so some examples of things that we did were high school security door upgrades, district camera upgrades. So there were items that were on our maintenance list that we were able to move up the priority list when we identified a funding source we could match up with those. And then another area are federal ESSER one-time stimulus funds. And so there's an investment of $1 million plus that the district is setting aside to fund for Highland View events. And so that was the highest priority item that we had within our capital plan. There was federal one-time money that was aligned to that, so increasing air quality levels within schools. And so this is an item that was at a deferred replacement level, and we're aligning those funds with that priority project. So that's why the team is working hard to think about how we can prioritize and reprioritize those projects, the methodology of that, because that will inform us and get us ready if these resource dollars become available from different grants, different state programs, different federal programs, that we can knock out these maintenance items as best as possible with those resources we're being provided. So we have here a couple additional questions for reflection. So again, this could be a spot where you pause the video, go back to the survey, and work through the rest of those questions. And it's really important for us to get that feedback as we continue on with our work. So, community level priorities. What we've heard in some of our recent community conversations is some feedback for our team that we're spending time looking at the functional usage at different times a day. So, as a leadership team, we are regularly in those buildings. But some really good feedback that we've gotten from our community is as this work evolves, that we provide some reflection on it and how that may inform the priorities going forward. And we also discuss watching that funding capacity. So as we're planning for our 22-23 school year budget, right now we're identifying key projects that we have available, but we're paying close attention of whether there are new avenues to acquire resources and funding to maybe get some more of those priority items completed, and making sure that if those funds are available, we're taking the highest priority item that we can match up with that funding source. So with that, again, on that survey document, feel free to add in additional questions or additional priority areas that you have. If you want to engage further in the conversation, we will be presenting to the facilities committee to the board on June 20th. And then you're welcome to follow up with myself if you want to be engaged in what the facilities committee is doing, the ongoing work there. We talked a little bit about budget and budget process. So a couple of items there. April 18th, we will be doing a presentation and tour. So you're welcome to come to the tour. It'll be middle of the day at Canterbury School. And then from 1 to 2 p.m., I'll be hosting a school finance 101 along with Peter Erkin from our business office and Dr. Amidzik. We will do the same presentation on Wednesday, April 20th in the evening. So there'll be a college park tour and then a school finance 101 presentation at 7 o'clock. So again, the same presentation, but as we had talked about earlier, important that we create opportunities and avenues for tours within our buildings. And so these are two more great opportunities for our community to get into the buildings. We talked about the site tours that we completed at Highland View on the 10th and the high school on March 31st from 6 to 7 p.m. If you have interest in times when you could be able to see those buildings for our planning for the future or other information on joining the facilities committee work, feel free to reach out to me directly. My email information and phone number is here on this last slide, and I would be happy to continue on with the discussion. Just the last piece would be, if you have not, now would be the time that you could press submit on that survey document that you've been completing throughout the discussion. And I will let Mr. Hacker here give us any final thoughts as we wrap this up.
Just really appreciate everybody taking the time to watch this video. This is so important to stay plugged in and know what's going on in your schools. I know in Greendale, the schools are an anchor to the community in so many different ways, and the district really is trying to keep that a focus, making sure that folks get access and have feedback loops on how to continue to improve that. And so I appreciate you taking the time to participate in that. And by all means, if there's anything I can do to continue to be of support, please see Jonathan's contact here, and I'm sure he can loop me in as needed. So thank you, Jonathan.
Great. Thank you.